All right. Hey. All right. They just told me that the recording's in progress, so I gotta readjust. Hey, all right. Hey, everybody. This is Chris Albrecht. I am with OpenWater, and we are doing yet another one of our amazing webinars on a series, that we do every week over at openwater.group. And I am lucky today to be talking with the only, well, I'm going to Zuzy, Planet Zuzy. She is a DJ in Las Vegas, and we are going to talk about how to become a DJ. This is going to be a super fun chat. Zuzy is super amazing. Welcome to the show, Zuzy. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's just set some, because I'm old, right? So my concept of being a DJ is probably far different than what it is actually.
hmm
So let's start off this way. Tell me, what is your job? Like, what do you do on a, I won't even say daily, because I'm going to guess that it's happening more at nighttime. So what is your job? What do you do?
I'm a resident DJ at a club called Voltaire in Las Vegas. My job in that particular club is a little more well-rounded, has a lot of bit more to do with the other things rather than just DJing. But as a DJ, my job is to curate a dance floor. It's to curate a variety of different genres, to be able to read a crowd, to be able to build energy. I start from around, in this case, I start from around 8 p.m., go all the way up to 3 a.m. So my job is to slowly build that night and build people's energies. And um, it's curation. It's the curation of sound, the creation of music. Obviously, with my job, I'm also an artist, so I tend to incorporate own my own music and my own productions and remixes and things like that. Um, well, yeah,
So
are you looking for an answer more in
Well,
Vegas
so
or
no, so
generally
let's
as a DJ?
because so like when I show up to work, right? Like I
Mhm.
roll into my home office, evidently, obviously, and then like I start typing, type. These are the things I need to do today, right? But your mission seems to be the same from night to night, which is like keep the crowd excited, keep them there, presumably buying drinks or whatever, right, for the club. But so when you're preparing your day, like
Mhm.
what's a typical day for you? Are you that afternoon? Are you looking at, oh, these are the songs I'm gonna play? And this is the order I'm going to put it in, or what is that? What sort of prep do you do going into
Um,
it?
it depends. I think at this point I'm playing 5 times a week, and I have a well enough developed library where I don't really need to prepare specific sets for specific moments because it's rather liberal in terms of what I can play because I'm familiar enough with my library to know what I can play, what songs I should play in specific moments and what songs I shouldn't. I think you start to realize, you categorize once you get to know music, you categorize music by keys, by BPMs, by genres. And once you familiarize yourself with how you organize your music in your library, with time you become so aware with what you have that you can kind of go with your instinct. But that being said, there are moments, for example, where I have to play for only 10 minutes because it's a specific transition in the show. And for that, I will make a specific playlist and I will time it and make sure that, this is exactly how long it takes. And this is our intro song, this is our outro song. I think for any other gig, I think my situation is a little unique just because I'm playing pretty much the same show. The only thing that changes is the headliner, 5 times a week. So you do that if you do that for a few weeks, you're used to it and you're able to improvise a lot. But I think when it comes to any other gigs, then I guess my typical day would be to listen to music, do research on that venue, what that venue is, what kind of crowd am I expecting, what order am I on in the lineup. Am I at the beginning? Am I in the middle? Am I in the end? Because I think that has a lot to do with what kind of music you're playing. I think every DJ, there's a little bit of a stigma within the DJ industry that you have to be attached to a specific genre and how, if you're a house DJ, then you're a house DJ. If you're a techno DJ, you're a techno DJ. I think now the beauty of it is that DJs are starting to be able to play whatever they want and you're not really coming to see a DJ anymore for a specific sound, you're coming for a specific vibe. And I think that is great because I think the best DJs out there are the ones that can bounce from genre to genre and are not just glued to one thing. I think the best ones can kind of be put in any room in any situation and know how to entertain people, right? Know how to provide
So
that.
yeah, so okay, so you're trying to create a vibe. I imagine the vibe in a room, and this makes me feel so old when I say this. Oh boy. But like so, because I would imagine that somebody would be like, "Oh, I could be a DJ. You just put together a list and then you hit play, and then it just goes all night long, right?" But I imagine that it's obviously much more complicated than just hitting play on a playlist. So, like when you're in the moment, when you're in the room, like how many, I'm assuming you have hundreds, if not thousands of people or what, I mean, I guess if you're a
Mhm.
club, you may not be thousands, right? But you have hundreds of people that are reacting to what you're doing. Sort of, how do you adjust? How is your job more than just pressing play on a Spotify playlist?
Gotcha. Okay. So first of all, there are no Spotify playlists. DJs don't work with when I say
I
play.
figured, but I'm being reductive.
Well, look, I mean, when I'm like, for example, I know I'm playing a show in Philadelphia in April. So I will think about, like, I think that's a good example for this. So you'll think about, what you want to be playing. And I will start with the Spotify playlist just so I'm doing research, right? Because 90% of your job as a DJ is research, it's your song choice. It's the songs you choose to play. Because technically, everything else you do live when you're on behind the decks, anyone can learn that. There's hundreds and thousands of YouTube videos on how to beat match, how to select the songs, how to use the gear that's in front of you. But the art is choosing the song selection, in what order you put them, how you transition into them. I think to answer your question, once you have your songs selected and you have an idea, you use something called like you use a specific software that's called, for example, Serato or Record Box, and it's a DJ software. It lives on your computer, and I open it up and I will create a playlist called Magic Gardens 2024, for example, which is this festival that I'm playing in April. And I'll start adding my songs in there. That software analyzes an audio file and is able to tell you, basically, you can see the whole audio file and it can tell you what BPM it's at, what key is it's in, and what its structure is. So you can tell if it has, for example, 16 bars of an intro, and then you have your pre, and then you have your drop, and then you have whatever that structure is. And so once you analyze your songs in this way, you can kind of tell what order they should be in. And so that's when I will start particularly putting them in an order, because, for example, I know that set is only an hour long. So I have an hour to play very, very a limited amount of songs, really, because an hour is not a long time,
Right.
realistically. It's not a long time to play. Um, and so I'll put them in an order. You can add, in that moment, I will add little cues. So you can add specific moments, like when you literally will like take your mouse onto a specific part of a song, and you can almost like imprint it with a little arrow so that when you export it onto your USB, or some people prefer to DJ with laptops, the software will see that you want to start that song in this particular moment. So for example, I'll know that I want to mix, that's how you mix certain songs together, is you know that, for example, this one is the same BPM as this one. They're in complementary keys. I know that this one has an outro of 16 bars, and I know that 8 of those bars there's a bass, but then the last 8 bars are just drums. So that will allow me to then replace that bass with something else. And so you will find a track that you can layer, and those are called transitions. And that is a stylistic choice. I think every DJ has their own way of transitioning from song to song. Some people like 32 bar long transitions. Some people love to just scratch the disc from one side and immediately push up the other. Um, I think there are endless ways, and there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone prefers to DJ in their own, stylistic way. I think the key things to know is you have to keep in mind your BPM. So usually on a
That's
dance
beats per
floor,
minute.
that's beats per minute. Yes. So it's
Yeah.
how fast, it's the tempo of the song, how fast the song is. Um, a standard it usually is from around 100 to 140, and that's 140 is already like borderline trance. So I don't think not a lot of people tend to go. And then of course you can go even higher than that. Um, and so once you understand how tempo works, you are then able to categorize your songs in a different way, because obviously you want to start slower and then increase speed. Some people like to start fast and then increase, right? Some DJs bounce between, they really don't care, and they kind of bounce between a bunch of different tempos throughout the whole thing. Again, stylistic choice. There's no right or wrong answer. Um, and I think the most important thing is looking at keys. So you're familiar with there's certain keys that work with other keys. For example, when I'm talking about keys, I mean harmonic melodic keys. So if a song's in C minor, A minor, G minor, D flat, whatever it is. The good news is that on a pro controller in any venue, when you plug in your USB, it'll actually tell you if a song works with another song's key. It'll kind of highlight. But learning how to do that, learning how to understand musicality and how certain tracks will work with others, because if you put a song, sorry, my cat is climbing something. If you have a song, in let's say A minor, and you're trying to go to D flat, that's not going to sound great.
Mm.
Um, right? But again, it depends because if that's D flat song in D flat starts with drums, then
Maybe it'll
nothing will
work.
clash, right?
Yeah.
Nothing will clash. But again, it would because your it's the same thing as tempo. You're starting to increase, and music is a language. It's the same thing. So if you're going from, you know, A minor to suddenly jumping up a bunch of octaves above, then obviously it's going to sound weird. Um,
So
but again,
I,
these
I
are
wanted, I'm sorry for, but like it sounds like there is a lot more, you know, when I was growing up, a DJ had two turntables and a microphone, right? Like that was it. And they would sort of go back and forth. You'd start one record, then you'd start another one, right? And then, but it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that there's a lot more just software involved in sort of the DJing process now.
yes. Yeah,
And
definitely, definitely. It's rare to see DJs spin on turntables nowadays. It's still there and it still happens very much. But you don't see that at like a major nightclub. You don't see on a main stage, and frankly, I rarely seen it. The only times I have seen it are in, some really cool bars,
yeah.
or more niche venues. Now you work with gear, you work with decks. They're simply called decks. You start with simple decks like a DDJ, for example, which are decks that, like, actually I can have it so I can show it to you. But they're, for example, ones that you connect to your laptop, so they have no outboard screen.
Hmm.
Um, you literally just you have some
Yeah.
inputs here. You can connect them to your monitors. You can connect them to your laptop. And they come with specific software. So like this one, for example, it'll literally tell you, it says Serato.
Okay.
That being said, they're all pretty much compatible with each other. But so let's say if you were to put, this is the most basic, I think the most basic deck out there. So you
Okay.
have your two, oh my God, you have your two sides, your two decks. And then you have something called the faders in the middle, which are exactly the ones you use to transition. So you have the level of each one of yours. Here you can transition whether the output of the audio is on this one or if it's on this one. You have your EQ bands, so you have your low end, so that's where your basses, your mids, that's where your like pianos, trumpets, and then highs, which is usually where your vocals, snares, hats, that's where you're filtering out certain things. I mean, we're getting into a little more complex. It's a little too, I'm getting a little more complex here. But my point is that yes, it's software because when you pull up to, for example, to a venue and you have decks in front of you, they're called CDJs. You typically connect with a single USB or two, technically, in
Okay.
case one fails. To get that music onto your USB, you have to somehow, it has to be compatible, right? Like the software has to be able to analyze the music in a specific way so that that gear recognizes it, so that it sees that it's mapped, it sees that it's at this tempo, it sees it's in this key, it sees it's by this artist with this album art. So that's where that software that you have on your computer, that's what it's for.
Got it.
And it's how you export all your music. It's where your music lives. Um, but that being said, there's a lot of, like, for example, most hip hop DJs use their laptop, so they don't even use a USB. But again, they have that software. So in that moment, what they're doing is they're literally dragging songs from their folders in this software onto a display of the decks, and then that will just immediately load for them, and then they can
Yeah.
control it through these decks.
So let's say someone out there is really interested in becoming a DJ, right? Like just not even necessarily like a club DJ or whatever, but just getting started in it and whatever path.
Mhm,
What are some of the first steps they should take, right? Like, I mean, I want to get back to the gear in just a second, but before you even start getting into the gear, which I'm
mhm.
assuming is a lot of fun, like what should people think about first?
I think you should think about what kind of music you like to listen to and what kind of music you want to share with people. Because I think ultimately it's not about, what I like. It comes to a point where yes, it is. And that's the best part of the job is you get to share the music you love. But if you're just trying to DJs, think about what kind of music do you want to DJ? Do you want to be a hip hop DJ? Because start somewhere, right? That doesn't mean you're going to be locked into that genre forever, but you have to start somewhere, because it's very difficult to make, say, hip hop song with with a dance record, for example. That's a difficult thing. If you want to be a disco DJ, that's a very difficult thing to do because you're dealing with live drums, which means you are not going to be able to beat match as easily and be able to transition songs because the technicality of it is a lot more complicated. But if you start with it, well, then you'll learn how to do it, right? So I think that I would start with, what genre do you want to DJ? What songs do you like? What kind of music do you want to be able to play with and basically create your own
Yacht
vibe?
rock, all
Like,
yacht rock, all
I'd
yacht rock, all the
be
time.
really curious what that would be like to play. I honestly have no idea.
It'd be amazing. It would be the
Yeah,
best ever, is what it would be.
yeah,
Um,
but I would literally start with, let's say, making a Spotify playlist
mhm.
of 20 songs.
Okay.
Get those songs in. Try to stick to one genre purely to make it easy on yourself because again, like I said, all the different genres are different tempos, different keys, different um and then I would go, there's different softwares where different websites where you can buy music. And I think that's something to know is obviously to when you're DJing live, you have to purchase music. You have to build your sound library. You can't just torrent, you can't download from YouTube. You can't connect
Can't
to
just put up
Spotify.
your Spotify playlist and
No. So there's something called beatport.com, and that's the biggest, it's basically like an iTunes, but for DJs. So that's where all the remixes live, all the dance records, everything lives there. Buy those 20 songs, download them, and then download either Recordbox or Serato. Those are the two softwares. You need those, right, to even begin DJing. And you don't even need outboard gear because cool part about those softwares is you can drag and drop songs in and you can press play, there's something called beat sync, which basically allows you to, so as soon as you press the song, it'll immediately line up to the one. So all you're really doing is putting a song, pressing play, and then thinking, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll cue it in here, and you press it and it'll cue it automatically, but you'll start to hear what works, what doesn't. What
yeah.
kind of songs work on top of each other? What kind of songs don't work on top of each other? You'll actually also start to realize how fast the songs you like are, what keys they're in, because I think nobody really thinks about that, right? When you're just listening to music, you don't realize how quick those songs are or how they're structured because you're in the moment. So that's where I would start, and then I think I would get a simpler decks, some sort of, I guess the Pioneer DDJ, I believe 200 is the
So that's a
model.
good basic beginner
Yeah.
deck. So, all right. So
Yes.
you plug in you plug that into your computer or USB or whatever. Well, I guess you would need a computer because you need
Computer.
the screen
Yes.
to see the Serato software so that you can sort of beat match and do all those things.
Hmm.
So with that, so when you looked at the deck, when I looked at the deck, right, there are two like records on the front, right? Or I know they're not records, but hubs.
Yes.
What are those for, right? Like, so are you scratching or manipulating with those, or what are you doing?
Yeah, sometimes. And essentially what they are is you're moving the track.
Okay.
So if a track's playing, each one represents, let's pretend that each one of these channels here. So there's the way the decks work, any decks you see, you have one side, you have the middle, and then you have another side. Professional decks are separated. So one of these is its own piece of gear and it has a
Hmm.
screen. And then you have this, which will usually have 6 channels on it so that you can connect different outboard ones into this one. That's its own piece of gear. And then you'll have another one of these, which is its own piece of gear. And that's how professional decks work is it's basically this, but it's split.
Okay.
Um, so think about it as this is your one record.
Hmm.
All this really does is, yes, here you can scratch. So if you're a hip hop DJ, you'd use that a lot. On the sides here, when you see your audio file of your song, you'd be moving the speed of the song. So what the point you're at. So the idea of a good DJ is you do something called you beat match. So
Okay.
you'll have one song playing, right? You'll literally cue one song in, then you'll press play, it's playing. You can twist this knob, you'll cut the bass out. You can twist this knob, you'll probably cut the piano out. You can twist this knob, you'll probably cut the snares out. It's playing right now. In your software, in your gear, or in professional decks, you'd see it on screen. You see the song. You literally see the audio file of the song. Zoomed in, you can see exactly what's going to happen. And you have
And you're talking about the
bars.
waveform,
Yes.
right? So you
Yes.
could see like, oh, there's a big crash here, and then it'll
Hmm.
shrink down and
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
quiet for a minute
It
or two or
doesn't
whatever.
explicitly tell you that, but you learn by reading the waveform, right? So you
Yeah.
know that if it's higher, it's obviously there's drums, it's probably the drop. You'll kind of get to know. But what you also see is something called bars. So you'll see your structure of your song. So a red line will mean the one. And typically most dance records, I mean all dance records are in 4/4. So they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing that changes is the speed. So you'll see that your one is here, and the idea is to line up the one of this song to the one of this song.
Got it.
So if this song is so here's like a mini little tempo fader where so you can adjust. If this song, let's say, is in 120 and I have this song in 123, if I bring them both to 122, they'll work. They'll
Got
probably
it.
work. right? I mean, those kinds of differences of BPM are very, very low.
Yeah.
And so I will be listening to where the one starts here. I will usually cut out the bass of this one and I will press play. I will then move the jog wheel here. It's called the jog wheel, to the one, and I'll listen in because you always also have headphones, and you'll listen and make sure that it's on the one. And when you know it's on the one, you'll start bringing it up. And so they're both playing together. But there's no bass here. So it works because as soon as you have too much bass and kick, then it just does, especially on a high-end speaker system, it's too muddy. You don't hear anything. Um, but again, this is a stylistic choice for me. Like this is what I like to do. So you'll cut out the bass and you'll have both of them playing at the same time. You'll know when this one's ending or where there's a moment, for example, where all the drums fall out and there's just a little piano going on or whatever it is, and the drums continue. So in that particular moment, I will swap the basses. I'll take out the bass from here and take out the bass from here. And at that point, your lead track is this one now.
Yeah.
And you can slowly start to fade out. You can, you can start getting into effects and different loop. You can loop it. There's buttons where you can actually loop the song. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it'll repeat that same four bars.
Yeah.
So that you can slowly just play around with it, loop it, bring it back in, take it out, whatever you want. That's where the fun begins because you can just bounce between tracks. And then if I want to go back to it, you can read when this song ends and you can come back to this one if you want. That's up to you.
Got it.
But that's
No, that's,
essentially how you begin to mix. And I think
yeah.
the mixing part is the important part, is how do you transition from one song to the other, because transitions are the hardest. That's something that requires the ear, because not only do you have to learn technically how to do it in terms of like using the right, how do I change the tempo? Where do I see the one? But you can make any song transition technically sound good by going by the book, right? So if it's the same tempo, it's the same key. But the best ones are the ones that are unexpected and the ones that are just extremely smooth. And it matters what song goes into the other song. If you can, for example, find a way to layer the drums and the bass of one song with the vocals of another, and then you slowly bridge them and then fade out the other, so you can't even tell that the other one finished.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what's the key to a good playlist or set, right? Like, is it just, you're just trying to keep people pinned into the red zone all night long, right? Like you just want them dancing and sweating and that's it? Or what
Mm.
kind of, to you, what kind of a journey do you want to take people on?
I personally like to start slow and build. I'm not big on just like going hard for a long time, but I also don't really stick to one genre. Like I blend between disco, house, a little bit of main stage dance, I guess. For me, my whole thing is European nostalgia, and I'm very picky with the kind of remixes I play, and the song choices that I make. But I think it really depends what you're playing for. Like if you're playing a frat party or your friend's birthday party, well then yeah, you probably want to go with hits every single time, right? Because no
Yeah.
one's there to watch you play, they're there to enjoy
Yeah.
and to listen to great music. But if you get, for example, to, then you could same thing applies for main stage. Like if you look at festivals such as EDC, or Ultra, where all the biggest DJs are playing, those are hit after hit after hit because it's each basically man for their own. The whole night, the lineup is structured by stylistic choice.
Yeah.
So at that point, you play what you want to play. But
Got it.
there's DJs that play, for example, you'll play a venue and you'll be playing. But when I first started, one of my first gigs were 6 hours long. When you have that much time, you play anything. You play
Oh,
anything and
so
everything, and you
th-
build.
that's a
Yeah.
good question. How did you get your start? How did you break into this business?
Honestly, it was very coincidental. It's funny because I started as like when I was 8. I asked my parents it was called the Newmark, which I don't think they exist anymore. Um, and I started there, but I never really followed through with the DJing until college when I was living in New York. And I mean, at that point, I was actually already working with you.
Nah.
And a friend of mine just happened who was working because I went to music school, so naturally I was around people in the music industry and I was making music. I was in it, but um, a friend of mine from class was like, "I'm pretty sure you mentioned you used to DJ, right?" And he was an intern at a booking agency, and so he was trying to book gigs for people. And he was like, "I have a DJ gig that's 6 hours long. It's this little bar." And turns out I actually used to go to that bar a lot, and I loved it because it was a performance venue, but it was also a bar, but no more than 60 people, like very nice and very intimate. And he was like, "It's 6 hours long. Do you want it?" And actually, that's literally that. It was a month in advance, and that's when I went to go get these particular decks. And this was 2021. Yeah, this was 2021. And that was it for me. I mean, I just started playing. I played that same spot a few weekends in a row. Every once in a while, someone would be like, "I really like your music. Let's like, I like to like play at this bar or recommend me this bar or come play my party." And that's how it all happens. It all starts with that one gig because the music industry is extremely small and it's all about the people that you know. So the more you can connect to people at venues, the better. And that's how it all happens. Like I would then any other venue I'd be at, I would find that
Yeah.
manager or host or whoever works there and just be handing out cards. Or my boyfriend would pretend to be my manager just so I looked better in people's eyes. And but that's what a lot of people would do that because that's you would do anything to just get your foot in the door, right? Because then once you
Right.
do and you play and you're good, they'll want you back.
Yeah.
There's a even though there's so many DJs around the world, there's such a demand for them because it seems like an easy thing to do, but it's a beautiful art to know to how to control the dance floor and how
So
to read a crowd.
wh- what are you what are some mistakes you see people make when they're first starting out?
Hmm, good question. I think that um I wouldn't even say mistakes. I think, technically, yes, there's very a lot of mistakes that you can make. I still make mistakes though. So I think that those it's not really about your technical mistakes. I think that you will always learn something will always happen. I mean, you see it to the biggest DJs in the world, their deck fails or they fail to transition and they just are honest about it and like, let me do that again. So I wouldn't, I think so ironically, I think the biggest mistake people make is they're too afraid to take risks or too afraid to make certain things because they think they're going to do poorly when they're playing live. But as soon as you get that out of your head and you realize it's not really about that, it's people actually end up respecting you more because they realize you're doing it live. Because there's a lot of DJs that don't. There's a lot of DJs that pre-record mixes, for example, right? Um, or take the easy way out, which is like you basically just let the song play out till the very end and then just press play 4 bars before it ends.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I don't know in terms of mistakes. I think in terms of DJing, there's not much that you can do. I think that kind of just comes with practice. I think in terms of career is what the difference is you have to think about do you want to be an artist DJ or are you doing it for fun? Are you doing
Yeah.
it want to be a career? Um
On that
and
note, what are some things people might not know about the DJ industry?
mm, it's huge,
It
massive.
is.
It's got I mean, it's the wealthiest artists on this planet are DJs. I can tell you that right now. And people don't know that because DJs are very also, I think rather reserved people. There's a reason why you don't have pop star DJs. I mean, of course, you have your David Guettas, your Tiestos, um, which they are, but they're actually very private people if you think about it, because their DJs are not really. They are about the music, and they prefer to kind of stay behind the decks. And a lot of Mark Knight, and Mark Knight is a very known house DJ, and he actually, when he sees people looking at him or taking videos in his head, he thinks, "Why are you even looking at me? It's not about me. It's about the music." I'm not the person. I didn't make most of this. I mean, I made most of the records you're here at this point because I'm, 50 years into my career. But most DJs don't. You don't always only play your own music. You're also playing other people's music. So it's not just about you necessarily. Um,
I want to zoom in on that real quick. He's literally 50 years into his career.
oh, there's DJs. I think that's the other cool part is you actually become more valuable the older you get. You know,
Really?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he is around 50, but he's been
Yeah.
DJing since he's a kid. So I might have exaggerated that,
No, but
but
but he's not 22.
no, 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 no. I mean, you have people like David Guetta, he's 53, I think, 54.
Wow.
Tiesto, he's also in his 50s. Mark Knight, Carl Cox. I mean, I think that's the coolest part because you actually get more valuable the older that you get because your library, your experience is ridiculous. And imagine their song library. Like if I have a couple hundred, I'm sorry, 1,000 records on my USBs, imagine how many they have.
Yeah.
So if you put that in perspective, he can be put in any room and do a fantastic do it. It's bound that he's going to do a great job. So the bigger you are, the older you get, the more valuable you are, which is kind of funny because I think you don't really have that in you look at it, every pop star, it's opposite. Age is not really kind to you in terms, the way society,
Yeah.
it's not, they're not particularly thinking the older you get, the better you'll be. They kind of look at it as if golden years are behind you, which is again, very extremely unfair because it's totally not true. It's totally not true. Look at there's artists that are in their 40s and they're headlining stadium tours around the world and they're doing a great job. So it doesn't really matter how old you are.
So it's not too late for
No,
somebody watching this. It's not too late.
no, not at all. Not at all.
So
I
for
yeah.
somebody who is just like looking to get started,
Mhm.
what's the best way for someone to sort of carve out their own path into it, right? Like, is it looking to become a wedding DJ? You know, just because those happen. I mean, I guess it's an entirely different
That's
industry
its
unto
own
itself,
industry. That's its
right?
own industry. Yeah.
But what should people do? Like, is it just start
Go out.
practicing?
Go out. No, go out. Go wherever you are, wherever you live. Like search the best dance bars, dive bars, or whatever kind of, again, what's your music taste? What do you like to listen to? Go and watch DJs play. That's the best thing you can do to start because you'll start to pay attention. You'll see how they work, how they structure their music, what kind of songs they play, especially once you go to different venues and you see that. I mean, if you go to a small bar and you see a DJ playing, I guarantee you, if you walk up to that DJ and say, "Hey, I'm actually looking to learn. Can I just sit here and observe?" They will say yes.
Oh, that's
And so
nice.
you just watch. Like I did that a lot, and you just observe and kind of see what they're doing and what gear they're using and how they're mixing different songs. But see what's out there because ultimately, if I mean, again, depending on what kind of DJ you want to be. Do you want to do it for your career, or do you want to do it because you just want to do it? You enjoy doing it, right? You want to do it for fun, a couple times a
Yeah,
week. Different things, different that those have different priorities. I think if you want a DJ to be your career, then that's a very different conversation to have. But again, that is how you'd start. You would go to same thing. You would go to different venues and just listen. Just
yeah.
listen, spend time listening, see what people are playing, what's popular out there. And then with that, you'll start to discover like, what, oh, I love this song. And then you'll maybe Shazam that song, which is an app that recognizes what song they're playing, what song's playing, right? In real time on your phone, you can download it. Which I like every time I'm at a concert, I got that girl with the blue
Hmm.
app on their screen. And you'll slowly start to realize what you like, what you don't like, and how it works, and what the DJ world is like. Because again, I can explain it to you. I can teach you technically how to do it in 10 minutes, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about the choices you make, how you stylistically transition, um, how in what order you put your songs, and it's 80% song choice.
You mentioned earlier about reading the room. Other than people like leaving the dance floor, like, is it just a vibe you're picking up off the room? Like, how do you read a room? What are the
Honestly,
telltale signs?
it's funny you say that because I was thinking about that, like, because you see it all the time, and you hear all these big DJs talk about the best DJs read rooms.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't think in the club I play at now, the booth it's beautiful, but it's rather high up. So you don't really see people that closely. So it's been rather difficult to read the room. And I think what it is it's a slow process, and you kind of just feel it. The more you play the songs, you will kind of sense if you get a reaction or you don't. Um, some songs you do, some songs you don't. I think it's something it's just an instinct that you learn to pick up the more you play, the more
Yeah.
rooms really, because some rooms are incredible and you can honestly play anything and they're gonna love you. But
Yeah.
some rooms are very much aren't. I mean, I have moments, and usually I can just tell by the direction of the like once that song is already playing, I'll be able to tell whether do I want to keep playing it or do I want to transition out of it, halfway through, for example, because I don't see people enjoying it. And a lot of it comes down to literally just observing, like looking, seeing if people are dancing, if you can. I mean, there comes to a point when you have 1,000 people in the room, it's kind of difficult to do because you can't distinguish between
Yeah.
who's who's dancing, who's not. Um,
So what's as we sort of wind up here, Zuzi, tell me, what's the one bit of advice? Like, what's an actionable piece of advice that you can give to people right now who would want to get started? Like, what's the first thing they should do?
I would say the first thing you should do is go search for the best house or disco or hip hop or whatever, again, whatever genre you prefer, venues in your town, and just go. Just go dance, go look at a dance floor, observe how the DJ's doing it. Because think about it this way, if you haven't seen that, right? If you aren't someone that has gone out in a while, then you don't really know what you're doing, right? Like you don't understand the bigger picture of what DJing is. And trying to figure out how to just blend two songs together is not going to do it because it's the feeling, it's the energy, it's the vibe that a DJ is. And so I think if you go to a venue and you actually see it in action, trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about and you'll figure it out because it's you learn from people around you. You will learn from other DJs. It is very competitive, but at the same time it's not. You will learn from other DJs. I say go meet people. I guarantee you, if there's a DJ playing, there's another DJ in that room somewhere. I
Yeah.
guarantee. Talk to them, and I think any DJ that's already been through it, done it, they would love. They want to help. They want to teach. I mean,
Yeah.
all of them, but I'm sure most of them would. And the more you can kind of start talking to people in that space and getting to know them, then that's what I would do. Because even meeting that talent buyer, meeting that booking agent, meeting those people, that's really important for gigs. But I would go just listen, find your favorite, if you love house music, go see your favorite DJ play. Go find those DJs, just go to their shows, see what they're doing, listen to what they're doing. Wear earplugs. That's the biggest thing. Protect your ears. That people don't get enough.
Yes.
They tell you that. Protect your ears. Um, and then just get Record Box, get Serato, either one of those softwares. There's hundreds and thousands of videos on YouTube on how to DJ, and they're great. And they're made by DJs, so like famous, well-known, recognized DJs. Watch those. I would first try and get as much information as you can, because I think I mean, I was first advice someone told me is like, go get gear and download music and just play, right? But I feel it would have been very helpful if somebody told me to do these other things because then you'd kind of understand the big picture you're kind of trying to enter and what you're trying to do. Um, and the rest will come easy because the rest is mainly technical, I
Awesome.
would say.
Well,
Yeah.
this has been super uplifting for a talk I was going into. It's like, oh yeah, this is, aspirational, but it actually sounds like it could be a little more practical, a little more real than I
Yeah, I hope
thought.
so.
Zuzy, aka Planet Zuzy of the Voltaire in Las Vegas. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
And I think I'm gonna go visit a club. Why not?
Definitely come. I mean, if
Um,
anyone's in Vegas, there.
Voltaire will do. Thank you so much, Zuzy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it for this week. Everybody come back next week. We'll have another talk. I can't remember, what do we have next week? Oh, we've got Unleashing Your Inner Artist next week. That'll be a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody.